Heard that? Sure. Let's target 15 minutes. You're a part of the plan too. But if you make us go longer than 15 minutes, we'd love that because that means that you're chatting with us and we're discussing qualifying and we're having a lot of fun, which is the whole point of this post qualifying review and preview of sorts for the Imola GP because this is a mix of both. There's so many stories to unpack from whatever's gone on in the weekend so far, and also so many stories to watch for from tomorrow's race. And we haven't really planned this episode as much, so we're going to go free. And I'm going to use that leverage, Kunal, to focus on our title because I want to bring our mind to two great sporting disasters that have happened with teams. 1950 World Cup, the Brazilian team comes to Maracanã in the World Cup final, hoping for the very best, with over 100,000 people showing up at the stadium supporting the team, and Brazil lose. It's disappointment to the scale of a natural calamity that happens there, and they've never forgiven their team for that. Uruguay beat them. Then 2023, not the same scale, but Tottenham go away to Newcastle United. They get smashed 6-1, and their performance was so bad that they actually said, "Hey, all of our traveling fans, you deserve an apology and a refund." So they refunded them all of the money that they paid to get their tickets to travel all the way to the north of the country. I think Ferrari should do that, even though the refund amount shouldn't be that much because most of the fans are just coming from less than 100 kilometers away. But 11th and 12th at home, at the circuit that they built to test their cars. Like Enzo would be looking at this and going, "Oh man, this is what it's come to. It's never happened before. Ferrari have never been knocked out of Q2 at their home race ever. Here we are."
Wow, first time Imola. You made all those football references. My goodness, I love them, but I have no idea what you spoke of. I understood Brazil, but I lost you at everything else. But anyway, uh, yeah, it's one of those disasters. And the strange thing is, they've come home, of course, first home race of the season. Maybe the last time they have two home races in a calendar. But anyway, I'm digressing. They've come home and they've found a new way to mess things up. Okay, first is of course qualifying disaster, and both drivers actually said it's not good. Of course, it's not good, but they did not do enough tire prep. That's where their challenges were. Okay, conditions are cooler than the circuits we've been to before. So, the soft is in fact even softer. The tires are softer. They just struggled with tire prep, and then you just wonder why is it that only Ferrari got caught out with tire prep. And despite having, a seven times world champion, despite having Charles Leclerc, who's been there now 70 seasons, or that's how long it feels, because they also messed up with Leclerc in in the tires in free practice, for which he got, penalized. He admitted we got the procedures wrong. He came into the pits wanting to reuse the tire, but with different tire pressures. And then guess what? They messed up the tire pressure changing sequence. There is in the regulations, there is a way you need to do that. Ferrari admitted it was a mistake. Can you imagine? They're finding new ways to cook up a disaster. That's the title.
It is. And I find it to be hilarious. I mean, the only thing I was waiting for was Leclerc to go to the radio and say "Mamma Mia," but he said something similar. He said, "Oh my god, oh my god," and I think it sums it up. And the whole weekend has been such a terrible one for them. The brake issues on Friday, uh, all of them struggling with any sort of confidence with the soft tires on Saturday morning, and then this one. I'm looking at the results, Kunal, and I know I'm sensationalizing things, but it is just what it is. They've been out qualified by one Alpine, one Racing Bull, two Aston Martins, and two Williamses, apart from the other teams that are ahead of them. This is 2025. And this is a clear sign that the budget cap is working. That's unbelievable what we're seeing here.
Absolutely. The budget cap is working, the sliding scale error regulations, etc. Everything is working. And let's look at Q3. Seven teams in there. Ferrari is not one of them, which technically means Ferrari were beaten by seven teams in qualifying.
It's
Isaac
unbelievable.
Hadjar is there. There was a Williams on pole in Q2. Yes, he got a toe, etc. But it's one thing to get a toe. It's another thing to actually make that toe work. That's another way we need to look at things as well. But my goodness, what a session! It was Oscar Piastri again up there slamming it when he had to. Scary with that last couple of corners. He had four cars to make amends with. George Russell squeezed in yet again ahead of Lando Norris, who said, "I'm just not quick enough." He was just admitting now, and I think it's what, 7 races. Oscars, oh, out qualified him 4 times in 7 races. When all of last season he out qualified Norris just 4 times. Okay, and then Max Verstappen, another magic. I'm waiting to see what happens in at turn one, and if Oscar takes the inside line, and then he believes he has the corner. What's Max gonna do there? Will he back out? Will he go off? Where I'm going with this. And who else was there? The two. I mean, yeah, and we spoke of Russell, Alonso, and Stroll in Q3, but they made the medium tire work, Somin. Can you imagine? They've got a qualifying specialist, C6, etc., and then it's the medium tire that went to work.
Yeah. And I found that to be phenomenal. And I was laughing. I was bawling when Lance Stroll actually came out and put that medium tire compound Aston Martin up into the top 10 in Q2. I was saying, this guy's going to mess it up for everyone. And everyone's going to have such a dilemma. And that's exactly what happened. And they actually made it work. Stroll on the medium tire could afford to go for that gamble. Everyone realized, oh, it actually works. And then even Alonso followed suit. And to be fair, right, we often mock Lance Stroll. The gap wasn't that much this time out. Fernando Alonso was only barely faster than him in the first round of Q3, and then later on, of course, bit of a difference between the two, a couple of tenths. I mean, to be more accurate, tenth and a half. But that's honestly not bad given where both of them have been. So kudos to Lance Stroll. He's put that car in the top 10. And for Aston Martin, the upgrades and the low drag setup, which it looks like a low drag setup because they're clocking in some mighty fast top speeds. It clearly is working out for them, at least in qualifying. And I think this is a great position for them to be in because Imola as a circuit, Kunal, has one of the toughest, has one of the worst records for overtaking. I mean, Imola, on an average, last 3 seasons, only 32 overtakes compared to 52 in Miami. So it's going to be very tricky for drivers to pass. And we have seen this in the last 4 races that we've had at Imola. It's so hard for anyone not starting on pole to win. The only way it has actually happened in this circuit has been when, firstly, Valtteri Bottas got outfoxed by Lewis Hamilton with a well-stopped, with a lucky VSC in 2020, and then the rain messed everything up in 2021, and that's why Max Verstappen won there. But 22, 23, 24, Imola won by pole sitter. So it's clear passing is tough here, and for Aston
And
Martin,
and
they
and
have
and,
done their part.
and last year the top three finished in the positions they started the race in.
Yeah.
So could that be the top three, and could it be Lando Norris out of position, etc.? But why don't we take a few minutes explaining what you've just explained about how difficult qualifying is and why some teams actually used the medium tire and not the soft, right? Because the C6, which is the hyper soft, ultra soft, whatever they called it back in time, Somil, gave more grip, but was not as consistent through the entire hot lap or qualifying lap, as we call it. So what did Aston Martin do? They put Lance Stroll out first, and they realized that the medium is actually holding very well. And Lance Stroll was, I think, fourth in Q2,
Yeah.
and then they put it on Alonso, but he couldn't finish a lap because of the Franco Colapinto crash. And then it was Mercedes that also learned from Aston Martin, and they put it on to George Russell, who then put it into P3. So the medium tire was more consistent, more predictable through that lap. And remember, let's remember the medium was actually the medium this year was the soft last year because
Last
we've
year.
gone a
Yeah.
step softer as well. But yeah, I'm eager to see what happens. In fact, since we are it's a Ferrari homeland, both the drivers, Lewis and Charles, said we've actually made some good setup changes to the car. Everything's working as intended, expected, and we have great race pace. But how are we going to unlock that race pace from that low? From when at a track you can't overtake unless there is mayhem, which could also happen because we saw the first 60 minutes of qualifying Sommel. We actually just saw 20 minutes of action because Sunoda put it in the wall, and then the race control was confused whether it was Oliver Behrman or Bortoleto who should go into Q2. So that was a 15-minute
Yes.
stoppage as well. So we've gone over time. Let's see what happens when it comes to the races.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it's going to be that crazy because both the crashes we saw were a case of the drivers pushing extremely hard. And Yuki Tsunoda said that he was ashamed of trying to be a hero. And that was clear, right? He pushed so hard on the curbs, the car bottomed out, just was violently shaken away. And that crash reminded me a lot of Rubens Barrichello in 1994, the way the car just launched off like an airplane into the barriers. And I just had eerie memories, even though I was not there back then. But it's like watching the replay. That was scary. So great to see that. But you're right, Kunal, because in the race, it's it's going to be tough for all these people to pass. And you know what you mentioned about Ferrari having great race pace. They also had great race pace back in 2005 when Michael Schumacher lost out to Fernando Alonso in one of the most epic duels that we've ever seen in Formula One. Schumacher qualified 13th that day and had great race pace. But then again, to just the same thing that you said, you might have great races, but how can you pass so many people at Imola? Those were different days. Cars were narrower. The circuit was even more beautiful back then. But he got stuck over behind Fernando Alonso. Now we have so many more drivers with the same capability and so many cars that have the same level of race pace. And the Ferrari is not that dominant as it was 20 years ago. So I'm genuinely scared and I'm genuinely worried about them because seven cars ahead of them, seven different manufacturers. It's wow, man. Did you see Leclerc's eyes after he qualified that low? He was about to cry.
It was. I think it was a bit of a surprise. And when we think of it, Samuel, actually there is no Ferrari powered car in the top 10 at
Wow.
their home race. So there is, anyway, you mentioned Schumacher 2005, 2006 with, and there, of course, there's great memories of him and Alonso going at it year after the other. And maybe that's what we're in for, PS3 versus Verstappen. That's what could happen. Maybe the faster driver will be stuck behind the
Ooh.
slower one, and we'll actually see lots of defensive driving at a track where you can't just flick open. I mean, you can flick open the DRS, but you can't just make an easy move. So we saw what happened in Miami. Okay, so turn one, opening lap one, all for it. And I think with these tires, if they are able to keep in that battle for longer, I think that's what we're going to tune in for. But what else should we talk of? Because
Tires.
we tires,
I think
yes.
tires, generally. Like, if you're asking me that question, I would love to talk about tires because C6, nobody has had a good thing to say about it. And fair play, Pirelli Motorsport, they're doing their part. They have to experiment, right? They've got to give it a shot. They've got to test out different tires. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the effort has to be commended. But I still think we should dive a little bit more little bit more into how drivers were actually feeling more confident on the mediums, Kunal. And you mentioned it briefly, but I want to go more in depth into it. The compromise between absolute pace and just having consistency and comfort on a tire is something that we haven't seen in ages in Formula One. But I was so excited to see that whole choice come about for all the drivers in FP3 and qualifying because rarely do we ever see the mediums being used that much. I think last time we saw it was Hungary 24 when we had that stepped qualifying session. 23 maybe is a long time ago, and now we have it again. And it genuinely must have been such a chaotic qualifying session for all the teams, just looking at all the data. And now I'm left wondering, what's the allocation like for tomorrow? I can't seem to find it. Who's got how many tires left? That's going to be so important.
Yeah, I think Pirelli is yet to release that, but largely I believe both. I think it was one set of mediums that both the Aston Martins used because they used it and then they used it again. So they were on a used set of mediums in Q3 because they can't compromise race strategy as well. But I clearly don't think C6 is going to be used in the race unless it's a four-lap shootout in the end, safety car, Abu Dhabi 2021 kind of thing. Same thing with George Russell as well, where I think it's going to be one set of mediums that he's used as well. So it's pretty much everyone's kept the two hards, which is, which was the medium last year. So they know how that tire sort of goes. They're going to try and make this a one-stopper sawmill. They will try and manage pace because the penalty for pitting twice in regular race conditions is very high. It's a 25-second long pit lane ride, along with including stop. No, sorry, excluding stop it. So when you stop,
Yeah.
you calculate all that. Even though a stop is just 2 seconds, you slow down, you accelerate. That is time loss. So it's about 29 seconds, half a kilometer long pit lane. These teams love to not stop. They will rather manage their tires on track rather than keep pushing. But they may not be at such a luxury because if there's a slower car ahead and a faster car is trapped behind and the faster car's attacking, maybe the tires will end up not be, the teams may not be able to manage their tires with their drivers as much as they would otherwise like to. But what else did we have in qualifying? We had a Sonoda crash. We spoke about that scary one. Franco Colapinto had a crash. Both
Yeah.
drivers, Somil. I love these old school circuits. You push a little, you hit the edge of the track, and then you're in the barriers. In the case of Sonoda, he was trying to carry more speed. He hit some curb, he unsettled it. In the case of Franco Colapinto, he had grass, which he put his left front on, and then he was into the barriers as well. But they live and they learn, which is great. But I'm surprised you haven't really yet spoken about Carlos Sainz and how brilliant he was again in
Yes.
qualifying. He's out qualified. He's out qualified Lewis Hamilton for 4 consecutive races. The
Yes.
driver whose seat he took, and of course, if it matters, he's out qualified Alexander Albon also for 4 consecutive races.
There's a reason why I support him. There's a reason
Yeah,
why I support him. It's phenomenal. Well, to be fair to Alex Albon, though, barely anything in it. Like barely anything. Less than a tenth, which is
yeah.
crazy. So
Which
just
is what
whoever can
Williams
make
would
the
love.
most of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why they signed him. They elevate each other. They lift the bar up for both of them, and that is so important. And we're now seeing both the Williams drivers starting in P6 and P7, which is phenomenal. Even though there's an Aston Martin ahead of him, think of it. If they have better race pace, they could realistically be walking home with fifth and sixth, potentially fifth and seventh. Or I don't know. Let's assume the best case scenario, fifth and sixth. That would be 18 points from this
yeah,
race. They didn't even score 18 points last year. I think that's what their total
yeah.
was in all of last year. So,
Absolutely. But just to round this up, Oscar Piastri still has the best average qualifying, which is number two or 2.0. That's his average qualifying across 7 races, which I think is fantastic and consistent. He's been, top three qualifying in all races except for Miami, where he was fourth. Then comes Max Verstappen with a 2.7. Then comes George Russell with a 3.4. And then comes Lando Norris with a 4.0. Sonal. So
yeah.
Lando's there. One quick word for Antonelli, Kimi Antonelli. He was 13th, a bit of a disappointment. He had his, school friends, doing a school trip. I think that was fantastic. Lovely to
That's
see.
like stuff from
Yeah,
dreams, Kunal. It's
yeah.
the kind of stuff you dream about as a kid when you're in school. Like one day I'll be a Formula One driver and I'll take all my school friends to a field trip and they'll watch me drive an F1 car. And this guy's done
And
it.
and they managed it with so many passes because usually you'd never get so many passes. And just for everyone, every team gets a certain number of passes to use for guests and sponsors. So I can reuse a pass. Say once I bring you in, second time I bring Somil in, Sundaram in, third time I bring Mithila in, and I manage one pass. But to bring in 20 people in at the same time, I think Liberty Media is doing fantastic to allow such opportunities and drivers. And Sadhana is here saying Carlos fans assemble, which is true. I think
One of them is
Carlos
here.
Sainz,
You are
all
also
of you.
here. So
I'm a
that's
fan of
two of
all
it.
all 19 drivers, if I may say it that way. But okay,
What
what else?
what do you
Yeah.
what do you mean? What do you mean? Are you not a fan of the driver that has outqualified both Ferraris at their home race?
Oh, I am. I mean, oh, okay.
I'll put you on the spot now.
But yeah, okay. Today, fine. I liked I okay. Credit where it's due. I think even Lance Stroll, different strategy, made it work. I always say it's one thing to get the opportunity; it's another thing to actually convert it. And he converted it. He was, out qualified by Alonso again, but that's fine. Again, very fine margins in it. In fact, Fernando Alonso said at the end, "Oh, I'm proud of Lance." And if I just read out their times, the gap between them was about 4 tenths, which is roughly the gap that I think they go there as well. One final word, Samuel. What happened in Miami was Albin was knocked out in Q2 when he should have actually gone into Q1, I believe, right? Was it Miami or was
Ye-
it Saudi Arabia? I think it was
I
Saudi
think it was
Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, yeah. So he was knocked out in Q2 while Nico Hulkenberg was supposed to go into Q something. There was no, 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 no. Why can't I seem to remember? Anyway, there was this one
No, no.
race in the last couple of races, okay, where Hulkenberg was put in and then taken out of qualifying 1 hour after qualifying, and that had impacted Albon's position because Albon should have made it through. So
It
this
was Saudi
time
Arabia. Yeah.
it was Saudi Arabia. There we go. And then what happened this time was it was Oliver Behrman who crossed the line and registered a time to go into Q2. But the question was whether the line was, whether the red flag fell before he crossed it or after. Was there a lag in the timing and when the graphics show up? Let's remember what you see on TV is actually got a lag because what happens at the circuit is more local and not fired through all the airwaves to us in the world. So that's what the FIA wanted, or race directors wanted to be very, very sure. Race control said either he's in or he's out. We can't make a decision 1 hour later again, and that's why Bortoleto was actually sent. And I loved this that they sent Bortoleto out on the fast lane anyway, saying, "Yeah, we know he's in. We are not the ones, fighting it, or we are not the ones debating it. So we are just going to send him out." I think that was damn cheeky. I think that was a little credit to Jonathan Wheatley saying, "I know the rules. Just send that guy out. We are in till we are told we are not in."
Exactly. But what went down here? I think Haas would be hard done by because you need to follow the panel or the flags that you can see in your local sector. The one that Behrman was approaching next, that is his local sector, did not really have the red flag flashing. So technically, for him, there was no red flag. And he crossed the line and his lap time should have registered, but it didn't. And I haven't really gotten a chance to go through FIA's official wording for that. But I'm with Ayao Komatsu on this. Like, if he is not being technically shown a red flag, his lap should not be deleted. That's what my reading of the situation is. Maybe they had it differently. Maybe they would go by just the timing of when they executed red flag all over the session, all over the circuit. Maybe that one particular timing beam or that one particular panel wasn't showcasing it on time. I'm not sure because we don't have live footage of all of it together.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
feel Behrman was hard done by with this one, honestly, because qualifying is everything here, Kunal. And Behrman's rivals, and Hadjar, a Stroll, an Albon, an Alonso, a Sainz, they're all up in Q2. He's not. Q3, he's
Yep.
not. Gasly's up into P10 also. And if I remember correctly, in Q2, Behrman was actually competing with them. He was up around the top 10 as well. So I feel he genuinely would feel hard done by this.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see. I don't know if an official documentation has been put out. I have asked F1 for that as well. But let's see how it all turns out. Okay, one last question before we end. What do you think is happening? Opening lap, turn one, two, Somil.
Uh, I think Franz Hermann is going to fight very hard against Oscar Piastri. And Oscar Piastri will now beat another opponent because he's already beaten Max Verstappen before at the opening corner. Maybe this time he defeats Franz Hermann, the holder of the lap record at the Nürburgring for GT3 cars. I don't know. But
Listen, you're taking the middle ground. Yes, he's going to fight. Yes, he's going to attack or defend. But tell me what's happening. Is it a clean lap? Is Max going to
no,
do some? No, it's not clean.
no, it's not. I mean,
Okay, so
honestly,
what's your top three at the end of the first lap?
I think I'm going Piastri, Russell, and Verstappen purely because I feel Piastri might hold the upper hand. And again, knowing the situation, you would want to be on the inside at Tamburello, which is what Piastri is going to most likely do. And then it becomes so hard for anyone like Max to pass. But if Max realizes that this is my only opportunity and that I have to go for it, I get a feeling he will. And if that happens, it becomes easier for the driver in third to get past, which is why I'm overthinking it. It's like layer upon layer upon layer. But since you've asked me what I feel, this is what I feel is
Of
going to happen.
course.
But what do you what do
Okay.
you think is going to happen?
I of course it's going to be a. I think both drivers will get a good start. Last time Max actually did not get a good start from pole, and then Piastri jumped him. Let's remember, wasn't it? Oh yeah, too many races in my head.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's going to be Lando Norris who will not have a good start, and Oscar. No, so anyway, that doesn't matter. He's in fourth,
You know,
but he'll
he's
be he.
actually he's in the chaos zone. Because below P3 it's the chaos
He's got
zone.
no Ferraris to shield him from that mess, and there's Fernando Alonso, always very cheeky. So I think there's something that's going to happen there. I think top three is going to just go as is. Max will not go aggressive this time. It just, I mean, do I know this? No, I don't know this. I don't know Max, but I just think he'll realize that. he doesn't need to blow it by taking another time penalty. And, because that's what happened, right? A couple of races ago. He was quick enough, but he just got a time penalty and he sort of went away. Red Bull's brought upgrades. They would love to know what can the upgrades actually deliver. These are cooler conditions, not as good for McLaren to sort of save their rear tires, go as long, dominate as well as they did in the last race in Miami and so on. So I think Max will probably play the long game. He'll try and see if he can have the battle race long rather than one lap, turn one, turn five, turn 17 long. That's my reading. My top three at the end is going to be Oscar, Max, Russell. That's where I'm going to go.
But do you think Max has? Okay, last question. I know we're going long, but do you think Max genuinely has a chance to win? Because I think he does. His pace on the mediums in FP3 today, very good. I know track conditions are probably going to be cooler because we're then going somewhat later in the day, but still, like I liked seeing the way the Red Bull was behaving, and then also I was able to pull out lap times from those mediums. It'll be fun to see if he can replicate that over a longer stint. But they seem to be dialed in on Saturday, Kunal, and that's a good sign.
Yes, and again, we what we saw is Max and Red Bull were not finding the sweet spot. They turned everything around on the Friday, which is what they're so good at doing, and then they put themselves in the game. I think he's definitely in for a shot, and just depends if he thinks he should be in a shot for all the laps or just the opening lap. That's where we should end, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we should. But let us know your predictions by interacting with us at Inside Line F1 Pod. This has been our qualifying review and a race preview. And look, we've been talking about qualifying for 26 minutes. We could go on for 30 more minutes because there's so many fun stories, but we leave something for tomorrow. So hope you've enjoyed that, and we will catch you after the race tomorrow to dissect everything that went down in this one. And if you're watching in India, make sure you tune in for the Hindi broadcast on Fan Code. It'll be a ton of fun. But we'll catch you. Bye bye.